Welcome to the Indomitable podcast. I am your host, Di Cerullo, and today we have another great episode that will leave you inspired. My guest today is the indomitable Genitta Pascal. Genitta is a childhood cancer survivor who was also impacted by depression and is still today impacted by anxiety from the trauma connected to her cancer story. This experience has allowed her not only to shift her mindset, but also to coach and inspire women, who are being impacted to challenge, overcome, and press on to accomplish their goals. Well, hello, Genitta. I am so grateful to have you here.
So happy to be here. I just want to say Happy New Year to all of your listeners, and I hope that
Thank you.
all that they set out to accomplish manifest this year.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, if nobody's met somebody like you before, why don't you talk about yourself a little bit and introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay, well, I am Genitta Pascal. I was born in the Caribbean island of Dominica. However, again, you mentioned earlier in the introduction, I was impacted by childhood cancer. So after my recovery, I moved to the Caribbean island of St. Lucia, where I spent most of my childhood doing lots of work in the voluntary area as it relates to peace, youth empowerment, women's empowerment. And this took me on another journey, for which I became a mindset shifting coach. And I'm just really enjoying this journey as I continue to inspire and impact women, men as well, but we focus primarily on women. But I have a lot of men coming to me just to ask general questions and see what kind of guidance they can get. So, in a nutshell, that is me. I love volunteering. I love being of some type of inspiration to somebody else because you never know who your story might help.
Absolutely. That is basically the entire premise of this podcast, that you can't be what you can't see. So I try to have these conversations with folks so that when they hear it, they know that somebody else has been down this path before, and you are such a great, great person to help inspire those folks. What do you see the most? Who comes to you the most?
Again, I'm not sure if it is because of my nature,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm always willing to be that soft spot for somebody.
Mm-hmm.
That sometimes I can be just standing in the supermarket paying for an item, and somebody would turn to me and say, "Hey, did you know?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
I guess people are just connected to me. So I
of
won't say
course.
basically it's my story because someone at the supermarket may not have known me and may have
Mm-hmm.
turned to me. I don't know if
Right.
it's maybe just something natural about me.
Right, right. Honestly, it's so funny you say that. My grandmother used to say that about me, that I would just people would just come up to me and know. And when I first met my partner, I told him, I was like, people come up to me and they just unburden themselves, and he's like, okay, weirdo. And then over our life together, we've been married for almost 10 years now, just over and over and over again, people come up to me in the supermarket, at the beach, anywhere I am. People will just come and just tell me the most, not maybe trauma, but like most deep story that they're holding inside themselves. They just see me in a crowd and they're just like, oh, this is what's happening. People like us, you're just like, if you have that trauma background or that background, I think people see that in you, and they
Right.
see themselves.
Right. I believe so.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's so great. I'm happy for you. I'm happy you're that person out in the world for people. That's so fantastic.
Oh yes. We all need that type of person to lean on. So I'm happy to be that for others.
Yes, absolutely. So when you're coaching, you said you see mostly women, which is
Right.
great. I love women's empowerment coaches. They are so fantastic and needed in this world. What are they having trouble getting over and that they seek you out for help for?
Okay, so most of the women who I speak to, or most of the women who come to me, they're more so stuck in that phase where they're trying to fight with what they would like to accomplish, and that challenge they're encountering, whether that would have been from some family, because a lot of us, especially in the Caribbean, our
Yes.
families tend to say,
Yes.
"Oh, I would like you to become a doctor," when really and
Mm-hmm.
truly we see how social media is going. Some of us want to be content creators. Some of us
Mm-hmm.
want to choose other paths. So we're constantly stuck in that battle of what do I do? Where do I go next? So they start to doubt themselves. And then
Yeah.
we see those limiting thoughts and those limiting beliefs about self begin to
Yes.
manifest. And
Yes.
sometimes I know that was my story once upon a time, and those women shared a similar story
Mm-hmm.
of not being able to speak up and say, hey, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is where I want to go next. And you're
Mm-hmm.
just stuck in that bubble. Sometimes it
Yeah.
feels like a comfort zone because this is
Yes.
all you know, but really and
Yes.
truly, this is
Yes.
just keeping you limited, and you can't make the necessary shifts, you can't take the necessary steps, and you're not able to allow those goals to manifest in your life.
Absolutely. Why do you think women in particular struggle with that? Why do you think we struggle more to recognize the power within ourselves?
Well, I would use my example. Sometimes I know my power. People
Mm-hmm.
tell me my power.
Mm-hmm.
They tell me what they see in me. They say, Janita, you go a long way. Even this year, I got a message, and I struggle with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a message this year. Happy New Year. Wish you the best for work. And I'm just like, wish me the best for work. And sometimes I don't see myself as the amazing professional in the financial or offshore sector. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody else may say, you are amazing. I know my coworkers continue to say, but sometimes you don't see it in yourself. So
Right.
sometimes it's really going back to that place of self-discovery,
Mm-hmm.
understanding who you are and how you want to show up in the world. And sometimes you may not have all the qualities
Yeah.
that you require to show up in that particular way, but it's learning yourself and learning to tap into those places and spaces that can allow you to develop those skills
Mm-hmm.
for you to show up in the world the way others see you. Sometimes it's just that belief of self and
Yeah.
limiting belief of self, even though
Right.
you in the back of your mind you say, okay, I can do this, I'm
Yes.
amazing, but sometimes it's just those thoughts that continue to tell you that sometimes you are not enough. This is big, this dream is bigger than you, so perhaps you should quit on yourself. And it's all those things
Right.
that allow those fears to manifest. And I guess
Mm-hmm.
once we can make that shift and get past those things, life will be
Mm-hmm.
amazing for us. And I'm still struggling, I'm still getting there, even
Of
as a
course.
coach. So I
Yeah.
continue to tap into the best places and spaces that can allow me to grow from this.
That's awesome. And I'm proud of you, first of all, for being able to say, I am also in progress. Because often you'll have people, come on and they'll come to you and they'll be like, oh, I'm a coach. I'm amazing at this already. You should take my
Right,
advice. And I'm always like, that is a very inauthentic experience for so many people because if you were done growing, you'd
right.
be done, right? Like you'd be done. So I'm very proud of you for first of all recognizing that within yourself and also sharing that with other people. I think that's very powerful and gives people a foothold in maybe finding their way to the path that you are on, and I think
All
that's
right.
really really cool to share, so that's excellent.
Thank you so
um
much.
I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you talk, and you just radiate light. So when you're saying, "Oh, I struggle with this too," like look at the light is shining off of you, literally. And I'm just like, that is so. How can you possibly feel like you are anything other than your most magical self? I had sort of a background of folks saying to me, "Well, you think you're better than me? Who do you think you are?" And I never heard them saying that to boys or brothers or anybody like that. That was always be better, be stronger, be bigger. But
Right,
anybody, women for in particular seem to be thought of so much as caregivers, people that are always going to be in that space, in that family, in that, caregiving experience that it's not often focused on, at least in my culture.
right.
We can be thought of as really selfish when we want more for
Oh, yeah,
ourselves or we
very much.
want anything else for ourselves. So how have you been climbing over that? How have you been pulling yourself out of that sludge?
Oh, that's that's an interesting question, and that is a difficult battle. I
Of
mean,
course.
yeah, sometimes you want to be the stronger one in the room. You want to be the one that everybody lean on,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes you really need somebody to lean on. And again, as you say,
Yes.
sometimes we are looked at as those people who have to open up and be able to nurture that
Mm.
individual who comes to us. And I struggle with that a lot.
Mm.
I struggle with that
Yeah.
at work. I struggle with that at home because sometimes I go to work and I'm not feeling the best, but I have to put on a smile because somebody else at work
Yes.
is dealing with something that they would
Yeah.
like me to show up for them for. With
Right.
family, sometimes they don't like the boundaries, and it's
Mm.
really hard. Sometimes you set those boundaries, and then you're looking back, and then you feel guilty. You said, "Oh no,
Mm.
somebody can't be going through that," and I'm just sitting there doing nothing about it. But
Right.
sometimes I ask myself, where do you draw the line? You can't pour from an
Yes.
empty cup. So
Yeah.
if you're not doing well, sometimes you have to understand that it's not being selfish, but it's really taking the time out to pour into yourself so that you can be better for the next person.
Mm. How do you feel as you talk about boundaries? I heard you use words like you can feel guilty or you can feel selfish. How do you sort of describe boundaries, and what do you feel like you set boundaries around to have your cup be full when you need to use it?
Well, what I describe boundaries as, well, to me, I see my boundaries as my peace.
Mm-hmm.
Because for
Yes.
far too long, over the years,
Agree to agree.
for far too long, I was just opening up the cup and the floor to everyone. That
Yes.
at one point, especially in 2020, I just went into a terrible depression. I didn't know what to do. I was having those suicidal thoughts. And that is when I
Mm-hmm.
went to therapy and I realized that I had to pull back in some way. So right
Mm-hmm.
now, before I would feel guilty about it, but right now I see my boundaries as my peace. And
Yes.
my boundaries would look like, sometimes it is not the best thing to do, but it's sometimes taking time out for yourself and say, hey, for the week, I need to zero in on myself. I need to focus on where I'm going. I need to focus on my goals, on my mental wellness. So just
Mm-hmm.
give me at least a week and next. And sometimes
Yeah.
many people don't, on your journey, many people, a week, what are you doing with a week? You can achieve that
Mm.
day and they begin to question, but you have to stand firm on those boundaries, understanding
Mm-hmm.
your why and understanding why it is necessary to make that decision in the present for yourself.
Mm. Do you often find, as I do, and you don't have to say one way or the other, but let me do it this way then. I often find that the people who push back on my boundaries, if I were to say, I need a week to fill myself back up, to fill my cup back up, I am completely burned out. I am ADHD. I burn out very quickly. I can go really fast. I can do a lot of things, but I also burn out very quickly. I often find that the people who push back on me about taking that time are the people who are taking the most from me, are the people who are maybe takers in general and aren't necessarily cup fillers in that same way. People who fill the cups of others have a tendency to offer less pushback when you take that time for yourself. Is that an experience that you often share? It can just be me if that's, I mean, I get that this is in public.
Oh, yes, that is a very similar experience. I'm sure many individuals watching can
Of course.
identify with that experience as well. And I'm not sure if it's because those individuals who share those same ideologies like ourselves, when we make that decision, they understand.
Mm.
Sometimes I think those individuals who push back, maybe they're
Mm-hmm.
really not there yet, and we have to be graceful with them. We have to be able to
Mm.
not only tell them that we're taking a week, but perhaps for those individuals, we have to share a little more information as to why we would be more than likely to take that week so that they understand better. Because we may believe in our minds that
Mm.
these individuals are here with us, they understand, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
really and truly, they're not at that
Right?
place.
I agree. I agree. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about anxiety and depression because I, of course, deal with depression. I'm a mom of two kids. They are neurospicy. They require just tons and tons of energy. And I worry about them constantly. And I worry about how people see me as a parent constantly, how they feel about the things that I do. I'm on social media. Anytime people see me on social media, or I have a point about something that I am experiencing personally, I will get the most hate from things like that, things that I am personally experiencing that somebody else doesn't want to see. And thus, they will come to me and say, oh, well, that's not real. That's not, you're so stupid.
Oh,
That's
yes.
not, you know what I mean? So, in this day and age, in the way that we have to show up as people, to be successful, to be our whole selves, how do you manage? And I know manage is a terrible word. How do you manage how you're feeling from day to day? How are you manage? I mean, depression isn't something that you manage. I'll be honest. I don't feel
Right.
like it's something I'm managing very well. If I feel that way, I know I have to take the time off, and that's the only way I'm going to be successful at, let's say, quote unquote, manage. How are you coaching people through these things?
Well,
I know that's a big question. I'm sorry. I know my questions are like so serious today.
oh yes, but I understand the need for those questions. Sometimes in this coaching experience,
Mhm.
I am not really having a good day. But
Mm,
sometimes, especially today, I was going through some of those stories submitted, and I was just like, to me, every one of those stories, I was able to identify with
mm,
what those individuals were going through. So I try
yeah.
to, as much as possible, not neglect myself or self-sabotage in the process,
Mhm.
because I have people I can lean on. So those people who are coming to me are coming to me because perhaps those
Mhm.
individuals are not present for them. So I know I have those
Right.
individuals to lean on. So sometimes I tend to
Right.
remove myself from the equation and focus
Right.
on the issue or the individual that we have to address in the present duration of
Mhm.
time. And sometimes, yes, I cry. I say, oh my God, somebody
Mm.
else is going through that. That's after the call, right? But
Right. After the call, absolutely.
I have to be able to put on a brave face for them to show them that while I am going through the same situation, sometimes we understand that it can be emotional,
Mhm.
and sometimes we have to get past those emotions to dig deep into the core story and to find those solutions that will able to help you to get to that next stage.
Mm.
I know firsthand because I went to therapy, and sometimes I
Yeah.
tried and we achieved no real goal. And it was when
Yes.
I was able to get to that point and say, hey, stabilize your emotions. We understand what you're going
Mhm.
through. Let's get past
Mhm.
it. We're going through this together with the therapist. And that was how I was able to transition and come to where I
Mhm.
was.
Yes, I agree. I'm a big fan of therapy, and anytime somebody is going through something, I always recommend therapy first. I think having support and doing therapy work together, right?
Right.
Having support is great, but there's no one who can carry you all the way there or help you do that work in the same way. So I think that that's most excellent of you. First of all, thank you for talking about how you were feeling about being on this earth in 2020. That is a very hard thing to talk about. What do you think was impacting your mental health in that way? And how did you know it was time to seek help?
Well, to be honest, I didn't even know it was time to seek help because I was so ashamed. But let's get back to the point
Mhm.
of the question and
Please,
how to
yes.
get there.
Answer however you like. Exactly.
um, in 2020, I really got, well, I think it was a build up.
Of course.
And in 2020, it was really the collapse. So it was a build up and
Hmm.
then the collapse. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it was my childhood cancer journey. Again, you know, upon my recovery, I was only given 12 years to live. So I was a student at 18, and I
Right.
remember we were going home for Christmas break, and I said to my colleagues, we're going to go to this little Pizza Hut
Hmm.
area because we're celebrating my last year on Earth. Because they told me I only had 12
Right.
years. So
Right.
we went on, we had a good time, and then I realized the next day that I was here.
Hmm.
So I started to question myself. There were lots of opportunities coming, and I
Hmm.
started to tell myself that perhaps you should not apply, you should not take advantage of those opportunities. What is the point of going to work when really and truly you're not going to be able to fulfill the goals at work because you're
Right.
not going to be present? And that is when
Right.
I started to really exclude myself. I
Hmm.
would be present, but really and truly, I would be absent. Maybe present in the physical, but
Right.
everything else, I was just going through the motions to
Hmm.
get to that point where I'm no longer here. And it was really terrible.
Of course.
After a few years, I realized that I'm still here,
Mhm.
but with that constant thought of
Yeah.
perhaps tomorrow anything can happen. And I guess the stress of it all and all of those were impacting my health in
Yeah.
other ways. And I realized that I was going down a slippery slope. So in 2020, when I realized I was having those thoughts, I
Hmm.
thought I couldn't identify myself anymore. I
Hmm.
found a coach, a therapist online that I had knew throughout my youth experience and my youth work. So I began to do the therapy, and I mean, one day at therapy, it was really interesting that he said to me, "You have this amazing life. You're out all the time. We can see the pictures on social media. You can go home. You're okay." And I was just sent home in that way, and that is when I began to understand how interesting it is that we can show up on social media and in all of those spaces with a big, wide smile and really in the back. That people tend to
Yeah.
believe that, okay, we saw her, she's smiling, she's okay today. Yes, maybe when she's communicating that she's going through this, it might not really be so. And sometimes if I meet John along the way and John says, "Hey, I saw you, but you were at this party, everything was okay." And he's allowing me to believe that, again, I should not say anything about it. Perhaps I should not seek help from another therapist because I am okay. Maybe it's just something I'm going through. And you start to discredit yourself and your feelings and those thoughts. And that,
Right. Gaslight yourself.
yeah,
Right.
that became very dangerous for me because, again,
Of course.
suicidal thoughts intensified.
Right.
And I just one day I sent a message to one of my friends, and she came straight away, and she was able to refer me to another therapist who was able to take it from there with me. So that journey, getting to that point, was already in that space, was some of
Yeah.
the most difficult things I had to do. I was ashamed again, I was embarrassed because this happy, amazing young lady on social media, the impression on social media was not who she was when the lights go off from social media.
Right.
That was just
Right.
an interesting experience.
I'm so happy you had that friend that you could call because so often we don't see that. And it's so interesting to me because the conversation we usually have in the aftermath of a death by suicide, and I will, as I think about this, completely trigger warning this episode. So, the thing that we don't see is often what we say afterward is, "Oh, we didn't know. Oh, they were always smiling. Oh, they were always this. Oh, they were on social media or going to those parties all the time." And it just demonstrates how little we know about mental health,
Right.
and how little we know about depression, and how little we know about authenticity. How did you unlearn the fake narrative of, oh, if she's smiling on social media, then she's fine?
Well, again, with the assistance of my friend, I guess from the time I disclosed to her what I was feeling, she made it her duty every Sunday afternoon. She also struggled from bipolar disorder. So we made it
Yes.
our business every Saturday and Sunday afternoon to gather together for chit chat. We would do research and we would communicate to each other what we found, what were the patterns. My therapist, again, he also helped a great deal. There was this book that he referred to me. So I started to delve into a lot of self-help material to really learn the signs and learn how you may feel. Even as I experienced anxiety, I really thought I was having a nerve dysfunction in one of my legs. And when I went
Yes.
on to read more, that's why it's good to research.
Yes.
Sometimes the therapists can be very helpful, but it's also good to go into self-help materials, read, research, and understand what is happening to you in the moment. So even when the therapist is not present, you can be present for yourself. There can be these coping mechanisms
Yes.
that you can fit into your daily schedule to be present for yourself. So I went on, I read a lot, and I realized that after spending all of those monies going to the doctor for a nerve condition, it was really my anxiety that would allow my
Right.
muscles to become very tight, and then
Constricted, right?
and then my entire body would just shut down. So it's worth delving into self-help and doing the research to
Yes.
understand the process that you are going through.
What were you reading, if you don't mind my asking? What were you reading?
Well, I read a few books, and even I think I read Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. I also went in to read about the purpose, I can't recall, by Dr. Nadine Khalid. Just different books. There was also one,
Yes.
Finding Me by Viola Davis. There was
Yes.
this CBT.
Love it.
Oh, you read this one.
Love that book.
There was the CBT book only to focus on mental health, and they will teach you more about the signs, the obstacles, how to really get into that place where you can practice mindfulness, where you can be observant of the different emotions, the different feelings, the different things that are showing up within your day, and also being able to not only being able to name the emotions and name the feelings, but to also name what you're experiencing in those moments when those emotions and feelings show up.
Right. Absolutely. The language of advocacy is probably profoundly necessary in those situations, I would think, especially if you have a therapist that you're going to and saying, I need help, and they're like, oh, you look fine.
Right.
Like that's are you I have to ask, are you seeing a different therapist at least?
Oh yes.
Did
Oh
you
yes.
you piece that right? You said that, right? Somebody your friend offered you somebody else. Okay. Because I was gonna say we need to talk about that person immediately. We could just say not nice things about that person. Okay. Wow. That's profound. I am so proud of you. That is such an impactful journey. So now you help other people that are on that road, and that is completely amazing. So what does working with you look like?
Well, working with me, sometimes I tend not to be too stern and too serious, because for me, I know I have mentors who are very hard on me, and I guess over the years, over the period, I've become very resilient. I mean, so many.
Like you do.
I have become very resilient, and perhaps they can be hard on me, but I understand not everybody is in that space. So I tend to attempt to learn everyone, learn where they are, learn what type of communication suits them best. Um, the level of intensity for everybody might be different. Like for me, I can maybe just zero in for the week and I'm there, and maybe on the weekend I can move away, but not everybody along the journey. Some people twice a week is just enough for them. So you have to be able to
Right.
learn everybody, learn what works best for everybody in the situation, and go off of that in the work
Yeah.
and in your practice.
Amazing. Yeah, I think for me, I do better with people who are just like, oh, but you got it. Like I always I would agree with you that over time you develop sort of a resilience and can talk yourself into continuing forward. That has at least been my experience when I have serious and stern mentors. I tend to do better because I'm chaos mode all the time. So that's a fantastic observation. What are you excited about for your future? What are you looking forward to next?
That's a nice question.
Well, given the content of this interview thus far, I didn't just want to like talk about your trauma and trauma bond. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about the things that you're excited for.
What I'm most excited for, especially this year, is my journey with those amazing women, and I will say and men, because I don't want the audience to listen and say, "Oh, it's just the women," how.
No, it's right.
But the work I can do with the men and women, to be able to get them to that point where they're able to understand what is happening, make that shift, get unstuck, overcome whatever challenge it is, to be able to take those actionable steps to accomplish those goals that they set out for themselves.
And what about you? What are you setting out that you're excited to be here for? Are you maybe doing a trip, or you got a book list, or what can we expect from Genitta this year in 2024?
Well, 2024, I want to be less intense on myself. I tend to work a lot. That's all I do. So this year, I've written it down. The next step is to actually is to take more time for myself, invest in more self-care activities, and travel a little more.
How is your health? So you are still here, you are still fabulous, you are still making your mark on this earth and impacting the lives of other people who are going through what you're going through. How are you physically?
Well, currently, apart from anxiety,
Right. Of course, anxiety is the standard. I mean, agree.
apart from anxiety, I am currently trying to implement better practices because I am currently struggling with anemia. So the challenges
Okay.
never end. I mean, it's just finding
The
ways to maneuver.
challenges do not end. Indeed. Indeed. I would say that that's life in general. The challenges kind of don't end, and once you fix one
Oh
thing,
yeah.
you've got another thing down the road. Absolutely. It's just a lifelong learning
Oh yeah.
experience. That's that's incredible. So, dealing with anemia, how are you feeling otherwise? Are you feeling better with therapy, support, love, and people like me talking to you about how fabulous you
Oh
are?
yes, I do feel better apart from all of those things, and I tend to not allow them to take control of my day. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes physically I'm not 100%, but I also
Mhm.
tell myself that, I am a victor, I'm not a victim, and this will not get the best of me, and I keep it going.
Absolutely. Sometimes for me, when I'm feeling totally run down or that I can't anymore, I will take a break and remind myself that everybody who came before me didn't have that opportunity and
Right.
just feel grateful for that. And other times I will, if I have to power through, I will remember that 60% of me is about 120% of some other folks. And I will just be like, good. If I only had 60% to give and I gave all 60%, I gave 100%
Right.
that day, you know? So, yeah, absolutely. I love that for you. Good. So, what are you offering for new coming clients in the future this year?
Well, this year, to begin the journey, we are offering a Get Up and Make That Shift Goal Chasing Series workshop. Be
Mhm.
a live in-person workshop on the island of St. Lucia for women
Mhm.
who are just stuck in that place of not being able to take that next step, regardless. Well, sometimes we're going through that challenge, and all we see when we wake up, first we look at the
Mhm.
challenge,
Mhm.
we allow the challenge to consume us. So I want women to understand that,
Yes.
hey, we're all going to have to overcome challenges, sometimes numerous challenges in
Yes.
1 year, but you can't sit on
Mhm.
your goals and say, hey, I'm not going to pursue this because this challenge might show up. I'm scared of pursuing this because I might encounter this thing later down the line. No, saying go,
Yes.
let's
Yes.
accomplish these things, let's get up, let's make that shift, and let's accomplish those goals that we set out for ourselves in 2024. So I have that, and
Fantastic.
that I also have the podcast coming back on this year where we share
Good.
individuals come on to share their experiences that they encountered behind the win. Again, on
Mhm.
social media, we may post something and all somebody else might be going for a similar challenge and they don't know that because
Mhm.
all they see is your cover story, that amazing thing that you just shared with us. And sometimes they're really going through this and they're saying, hey, why can't I get there too? She has an amazing
Mm.
life. She's posting all of this amazing thing on social media. And I'm really stuck in that place
Mhm.
and I can't get there. But nobody knows because all they ever get to see is your cover story.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yes, so I want individuals to come on and share their experience of how they were able to maneuver through the challenges to get to that place of accomplishing their goals so that they can inspire
Mhm.
someone else.
When it's time for someone to work with you, like say, for example, somebody's listening to this and they are thinking, should I reach out? Should I work with this person? Are there any keywords that they might be saying to themselves that maybe are a good indicator that they should call you?
Key words, phrases, or things that they might be saying to themselves or might be showing up on the daily would be
Mhm.
maybe lack of direction, care,
Mhm.
risk,
Mhm.
failing,
Mhm.
mindset, lack of inspiration, self doubt,
Mhm.
limiting thoughts, perception.
Yep.
So those are the types of words that may show up
Yes.
in there every day.
Do you work with a lot of clients who are dealing with illness and struggling to potentially plan for their futures past that or living with something like that? I do when you're talking to people about things that they have overcome in their lives, you often have physical illness be one of those things. Is that one of your sweet spots, so to speak, of people that you can help achieve really great things? Would that be another great spot for you.
Well, I do have a lot of people who come on to share. Well, the stories that they share are related to mental health and wellness.
Of
It
course.
is also related to grief, losing a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
It is also
Mm,
related to having to maneuver through a tumultuous relationship, whether that's with
mm,
family or friends or a spouse. Um,
sure.
I've not really encountered anyone with my story of cancer and having to maneuver through a physical illness, but more so on the mental wellness side.
Right. Well, that's because you're magical. I mean, there aren't a lot of Genittas out there, I'm sure. I've been talking to human beings for 40 years now, and I can assure you there are not a lot of you out there. Um, Amazing. I love that you're doing that for people. I think that that's completely one of the most worthwhile uses of any time any human has is helping other people on their journeys as well. So I'm very proud of you. That's an incredible story. I'm so happy to have had you here. Thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I'm so happy to have
Okay,
received your
so
invitation. And again, I hope that the words I came on here to share today would inspire someone.
well, you are an absolutely inspirational guest, and I'm so happy that you had the time for me today. So as I am always saying, I'm sure this conversation could go on forever, but we need to let Genitta get back to her important work in this world, as we were just discussing. But I'm sure everyone would love to hear more about how to follow you and get in touch if they want to work with you. How do they best do that?
Okay, so I am available via my website,
Mm-hmm.
www.gpateilier.org, or you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Genitta Pascal.
Of course, Genitta will send me all of those links and they will be posted in the show notes. Y'all, thank you so much for listening to this episode. And if you enjoyed it, please like and share to your network. Thank you to my friends who came out to visit me at the latest book signing. It is always so rewarding to see people being impacted by my story and sharing their journeys. If you have any upcoming events you'd like me to bring the Indomitable experience to, please reach out to us. And remember that my brand new book, Indomitable, A Foster Care Story, is available everywhere you get your books and is currently 5 stars on Goodreads. So finally, as ever, I am so happy to have you here in community with me. And remember, together we are truly indomitable. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.